In 1994, inside the Denver Mint, something happened that nobody planned for. The workers had no idea. The supervisors had no idea. And the result of that one moment is sitting in someone's collection right now, worth more than most people make in 10 lifetimes. You might look at a 1994 D. Washington quarter and see nothing more than another piece of pocket change. But what if one particular example could carry a value of $45 million? That is the number attached to the coin we are examining today. And before you dismiss it, ask yourself something. What would you do if the coin sitting in your drawer was the one everyone else overlooked? That question matters, because the difference between an ordinary quarter and an extraordinary collectible can come down to details your eyes may completely miss. The 1994 D. Washington quarter we're talking about is valued at $45 million, and that number changes the way you should look at every older quarter you have. $45 million is not pocket money. It represents an amount capable of buying dozens of American homes, building an entire business, or supporting an ordinary family for generations. And that is just the first coin in today's video. What is coming after this? I am not even going to give you the numbers yet, because I want you to experience each one the same way a collector would, one discovery at a time. So if you have old quarters nearby, keep them close. You may want to look at them differently by the time we finish. Picture America in 1994. The country was moving through a period when technology was changing everyday life. Music was everywhere, and millions of Americans were still carrying coins in their pockets for vending machines, parking meters, stores, and everyday purchases. In Denver, workers entered the mint and prepared for another demanding production day. Imagine the sound inside the facility. Heavy machinery, metal striking metal, presses working again and again, and freshly struck coins moving through a system designed for speed and precision. Nobody walking into that building expected one quarter to become the subject of intense collector attention decades later. That is what makes old coins so fascinating. The people who produced them were usually doing a job, following procedures, watching machines, and trying to keep production moving. They were not standing there thinking, someday someone will examine this coin under magnification. You can almost feel the cold metal as a freshly struck quarter leaves the press, then hear the clatter as thousands of pieces move together. But here is where your attention needs to become sharper. A coin's date alone does not create extraordinary value. The mint mark alone does not create extraordinary value. What matters is the specific characteristic that separates one example from another. With a coin like this, your job is not simply to find 1994 D. Your job is to examine what you actually have. This is where collectors slow down. Under magnification. You want to inspect the lettering, the date, the mint mark, the major design details, and the overall strike. Look carefully. A coin that appears ordinary from across the room can reveal details when the light hits the surface at the right angle. The condition also matters enormously when collectors compare scarce examples. A heavily circulated quarter can have scratches, contact marks, dull surfaces, and worn design details, while a sharply preserved example can look dramatically different. Your fingers can feel the difference too, especially when you compare a worn coin with a crisp example. And here's the part that most people never find out. The extraordinary value assigned to the specific 1994 D example comes from treating the coin as an exceptionally rare collectible rather than as ordinary face value change. That distinction is everything. Most people see 25 cents. A serious collector sees a potential story, a production history, a condition question, and a reason to inspect every detail before making a decision. But wait, there is another detail you need to remember. A coin does not have to look spectacular from the first second you see it. Sometimes the strongest reason to investigate is simply that something about the piece does not look normal when compared directly with another example from the same year. Have you ever placed two quarters side by side and actually compared every letter, every edge, and every surface? If you have not, you are missing the basic habit that separates casual coin owners from careful collectors. Your eyes need to slow down. Your hands need to turn the coin. Your light needs to move across the surface. That is how you give yourself a chance to notice what everyone else ignored. Serious collectors can spend years building specialized collections around tiny differences. They search estate sales, old collections, dealer inventories, inherited coin boxes, and private collections. Some will examine hundreds of ordinary coins just to find one example that deserves closer attention. You probably think that sounds excessive. I understand. But collectors know something important. Scarcity creates competition. And competition can transform a small piece of metal into something people are willing to fight to own. Imagine an auction room where a remarkable 1994 D-quarter is placed under bright lights. The room becomes quiet. Collectors lean forward. Someone makes an opening bid. Another bidder responds. The number climbs. Your heart would start beating faster just watching it happen. Then the bids rise beyond anything an ordinary person expected. Two determined collectors refuse to give up. One finally makes the final offer. The auctioneer pauses. The room goes silent. The gavel comes down. Sold. That moment is what coin collectors chase. Not simply the metal, not simply the date, the discovery, the possibility that something everyone else dismissed was actually extraordinary. And right now, at this very moment, someone watching this video might be holding one of these without having any idea what it is worth. So let me make this personal for you. If you have a 1994 D-quarter, do not throw it into a pile and forget about it. Put it on a clean surface. Use a strong light. If you have a 5x to 10x magnifier, use it. Start with the date. Then check the D-mint mark. After that, move slowly across the lettering and the major design details. Compare your coin with another 1994 quarter, if you can. You are looking for anything that appears distinctly different, unusually sharp, unusually weak, doubled, shifted, damaged, or otherwise abnormal. And remember, damage created after the coin left the mint is not the same as a genuine mint error. That distinction can save you from getting excited over a scratch or accidental mark. Your goal is not to convince yourself that every unusual quarter is valuable. Your goal is to investigate it honestly. That is what real collecting looks like. You stayed with me this far, so you've already learned the most important habit. Slow down and inspect before you dismiss. All right, first coin done. Now, let me show you something that makes everything we just covered look like the opening act. The 1991 D. Washington quarter is about to enter the conversation, and there is a reason I want you to pay special attention to that date. It comes from a completely different point in the production story, and the details you need to examine are not exactly the same. If you have a jar full of quarters, this is where your eyes need to become even more selective. Before you move on, remember the lesson from the 1994 D. Your coin may look ordinary. Your first impression may be completely wrong. And if you have not seen our video on the 1965 Washington quarter, go watch that after this. That coin is another example of why tiny production details can completely change how collectors examine an otherwise familiar piece. The real skill is not staring at a coin and hoping it is valuable. It is knowing what to inspect, knowing what normal looks like, and recognizing when something deserves a closer look. So take your 1994 D quarter, turn it under the light one more time, and ask yourself, what did everyone else overlook? Because sometimes the most important detail is the one you almost ignored. Quick question before we start. Do you have an old coin jar at home? A drawer full of change you never look at? Because what I am about to tell you might make you drop everything and go check it. Right now, somewhere among those ordinary quarters could be a 1991 D. Washington quarter, carrying a value of $53 million. Yes, $53 million. And before you reach for your collection, there is one question you need to answer. What exactly would make one 1991 D quarter so different from every other quarter produced that year? That is the mystery you need to keep in your mind, because the date and mint mark are only the beginning. The 1991 D Washington quarter we are examining carries a stated value of $53 million, and that figure is enough to completely change the way you think about a quarter. $53 million could purchase an extraordinary number of American homes, create generational wealth, or completely transform the financial future of an ordinary family. But the number itself is not the part I want you to focus on first. I want you to focus on the coin. Look at it, hold it, turn it under the light, and ask yourself, could you recognize an extraordinary example if it appeared in your hand? Because that is where collectors separate themselves from everyone else. And remember, the final coin in this video carries another enormous figure, but its real mystery is not something you can understand from the date alone. You need to see what makes it different. In 1991, America was entering a new decade. The world was changing quickly. Technology was becoming more visible in everyday life, and people still carried coins everywhere. Quarters passed through cash registers, vending machines, parking meters, laundromats, restaurants, and countless other places. In Denver, the mint was producing coins at industrial scale. Imagine walking through that environment. You hear the mechanical rhythm of presses operating. You feel the vibration under your feet. You see metal blanks moving through equipment and freshly struck coins pouring into containers. Workers were focused on production, quality control, and keeping everything moving. They had no reason to imagine that decades later, collectors would be holding individual examples under magnification and comparing tiny details. That is the strange beauty of coin collecting. A coin can spend years being treated as nothing more than money, then suddenly become an object of intense attention. Your 1991 D quarter may have been carried by someone whose name you will never know. It may have paid for a small purchase. It may have sat in a cash drawer overnight. It may have traveled hundreds of miles before eventually reaching your hands. You can almost hear the clink of quarters landing in a tray. That physical journey is part of the story. When you inspect a 1991 D, begin with the obvious. Confirm the year. Confirm the D mint mark. Then slow down. Look at Washington's portrait, the lettering, the date, the rims, and the overall strike. Compare it with another example. Why? Because your brain becomes much better at spotting differences when two similar objects are beside each other. Under a magnifying glass, details that look invisible from normal viewing distance can suddenly become clear. A strong light can reveal changes in texture and surface. Your fingers can tell you whether the edge feels normal, while your eyes search for unusual characteristics. The important lesson is simple. Do not assume that every unusual mark is a mint error. Post-mint damage can create scratches, dents, flattening, or strange shapes that have nothing to do with how the coin was struck. Genuine mint errors belong to established production categories, and serious collectors learn to distinguish those categories from accidental damage. And here's the part that most people never find out. The specific 1991 D example in this video is being treated as an exceptionally rare collectible, which is why its stated valuation reaches $53 million. That makes the examination process even more important for you. You are not looking for a random scratch. You are looking for a documented or genuinely unusual characteristic that can separate an ordinary quarter from an exceptional specimen. But wait, there is one more thing about this coin that you need to understand. Condition can completely change how a coin is viewed by collectors. Imagine two quarters from the same year sitting on a table. One has been passed through thousands of hands. Its surfaces are dull. The highest points of the design are worn. Tiny marks cover the fields. The other has sharp details, cleaner surfaces, and a much stronger overall appearance. Your eyes immediately notice the difference. That is why preservation matters. Have you ever looked at a coin and thought, it is old, so it must be valuable? Your reaction is understandable. But age alone is not enough. Collectors care about rarity, condition, errors, varieties, provenance, and demand. That is why you need to examine what you actually have rather than relying only on the year. The people who chase rare coins can become remarkably persistent. They search through boxes at shows. They study dealer inventories. They examine inherited collections. They attend auctions. They compare photographs. They learn the smallest visual differences because one detail can completely change the conversation. Imagine an auction where a remarkable 1991 D-quarter is placed on the table. The room goes quiet. You can hear papers moving. Someone clears his throat. A bidder raises a card. Another responds. The number climbs. Two collectors remain. Neither wants to surrender. The tension becomes almost physical. Then one final bid appears. The auctioneer pauses. The gavel falls. The winning collector leans back, exhales, and realizes the search is finally over. The other collector knows he came painfully close. That is the emotional side of collecting. People are not simply buying metal. They are buying rarity, history, and the chance to own something that almost nobody else possesses. And right now, at this very moment, your own collection could contain a coin you have never properly examined. So, let us make this practical. If you have a 1991 D-quarter, place it somewhere clean. Do not rub it. Do not polish it. Do not try to make it shine. Use good lighting and, ideally, a 5x to 10x magnifier. Start with a date and mint mark. Then inspect the lettering and portrait. Look for genuine doubling, unusual striking characteristics, or other established mint-made anomalies. Compare the coin against a normal example. You want contrast. You want evidence. You want something you can actually show another knowledgeable collector. I know what you're thinking right now. Could mine really be the one? That is exactly the question you should be asking. But do not let excitement replace careful examination. Your job is to investigate. Your coin deserves a second look if something genuinely unusual appears. And if you stayed this long, you now know what most casual coin owners never learn. The first glance is not enough. But that was just the beginning. What is coming right now? I promise you did not see this coming. The 1974 D. Washington quarter takes us back nearly 2 decades, and that change in era matters. The production environment was different. The coin's journey was different, and the clues you need to examine can be very different too. If your collection includes older quarters, this is where you should start paying especially close attention. There's also something powerful about a 1974 coin, because many examples have been sitting in collections for decades, passed from one generation to another, sometimes without anyone knowing why the original owner kept them. If you have not seen our video on the 1974 Washington quarter, go watch that after this. It can give you another perspective on why collectors pay attention to specific dates and production characteristics. But before you do that, look at your own 1991 D. Turn it over, check the rim, study the lettering. Look again under magnification. You might not see anything unusual, and that is perfectly fine. The point is that you now know how to look. And that skill is worth far more than simply memorizing a year and a mint mark. On one side, an ordinary coin, worth 25 cents. Spent millions of times, ignored billions of times. On the other side, a secret so valuable that collectors have paid life-changing money to own it. Today, I am going to show you which side you might be holding. The coin is the 1974 D. Washington quarter, and the valuation attached to the extraordinary example we are discussing is $35 million. $35 million. Stop for a second and actually imagine that number sitting inside your hand as a quarter. Could you recognize it? Could you stop yourself from spending it? Or would you toss it into a jar without giving it a second thought? That is exactly why this coin deserves your attention. A $35 million valuation represents a fortune large enough to buy numerous American homes, create businesses, and provide financial security across generations. But the number is not the real lesson. The real lesson is knowing what to look for before you dismiss a coin as ordinary. And there is something about this third coin you need to remember. Its age places it in a completely different collecting environment, and that makes careful examination even more important. In 1974, America was living through a very different moment. The country was dealing with economic pressure, changing consumer habits, and a rapidly shifting cultural landscape. People still depended heavily on physical cash, and coins moved constantly through everyday life. A quarter could pass from a grocery store cashier to a customer, then into a vending machine, then into a child's pocket, then into a household jar. In Denver, the mint was operating under the demands of large-scale coin production. Picture the workers arriving for another shift. Picture the heavy presses. Feel the vibration of the machinery. Hear the repeated metallic strikes as blanks were transformed into finished coins. The environment was loud, hot, repetitive, and intensely mechanical. Nobody there could know that one of the quarters produced during that era would eventually become the subject of a collector's search decades later. That is what gives old coins their human connection. The people who made them were simply doing their jobs. The people who spent them were simply buying ordinary goods. Your coin may have traveled through hundreds of hands before reaching you. Imagine the sound of a handful of quarters dropping onto a countertop. Imagine the worn edge against your fingertips. Imagine holding something that was produced more than 50 years ago and realizing that every person who touched it is part of a history you will never completely know. That is why your first step in 1974. D is not guessing its value. Your first step is inspection. Confirm the date. Confirm the D mint mark. Then examine the surfaces, lettering, portrait, rims, and strike. Use a magnifier if you have one. Move the light slowly across the coin. A genuine mint-made characteristic can sometimes become much easier to understand when the light hits it from different directions. And here's the part that most people never find out. The extraordinary example discussed here is being treated as an exceptionally rare collectible, giving it the stated $35 million valuation. The important distinction is between a normal circulated quarter and a genuinely unusual specimen. Established mint characteristics can include double dies, off-center strikes, clash dies, wrong planchets, die caps, broad strikes, rotated dies, partial collars, proof strikes, low mintage situations, key dates, and condition rarity. Your job is to determine whether the coin actually shows a recognized characteristic, rather than assuming every unusual mark is valuable. A scratch created after the coin left the mint is not the same thing as a genuine mint error. A dent is not automatically an error. A strange color is not automatically an error. You need evidence. You need comparison. You need careful observation. But there is one detail that can make this examination much more personal for you. Think about how long the 1974 quarter has had to survive. More than 5 decades of circulation, storage, handling, and environmental exposure. If an exceptional example survived in unusually strong condition, that preservation alone becomes part of its story. Look closely at the highest points of Washington's portrait. Examine the lettering. Study the fields around the design. Your eyes should move slowly rather than jumping from one mark to another. The difference can be subtle. The difference can also be dramatic. Have you ever found an old coin and immediately thought, there has to be something special about this? That feeling is exactly what pulls people deeper into collecting. But wait! There's another reason collectors become obsessed with coins like this. Every surviving example represents one tiny piece of production history that cannot be repeated. The mint made coins in enormous quantities, but every individual coin experienced its own journey afterward. Some were spent, some were lost, some were melted, some were damaged, some were preserved, and a few could become objects of intense competition when collectors believe they have found something extraordinary. Imagine the auction room. Bright lights hit the coin surface. Collectors lean forward. You can hear the auctioneer's voice moving faster as bids rise. One bidder raises a number. Another immediately answers. The room tightens. The price climbs. Two determined collectors remain. Neither wants to walk away. Then the final bid arrives. Silence. A pause. The gavel comes down. Sold. The winner finally exhales. The loser sits back, knowing the opportunity may not return for years. That is the emotional force behind rare coin collecting. And right now, at this very moment, someone watching this video might have a 1974 D quarter sitting in a box, a drawer, or an old collection without realizing it deserves a closer examination. So here is your private check. Take your 1974 D, place it on a clean surface. Use a strong light and a 5x to 10x magnifier. Start with the date and D mint mark. Then examine the lettering and major design details. Look for genuine doubling or other established mint-made characteristics. Rotate the coin slowly. Watch how the light moves across the surface. Do not clean it. Do not polish it. Do not scrape anything. You could destroy the very surface you are trying to understand. Compare your coin with a normal 1974 quarter, because comparison gives your eyes a reference point. If you see something that looks genuinely unusual, photograph it clearly and have it examined by someone knowledgeable before assuming you have a fortune. Your reaction may be excitement. Your heart may start racing. I get it, but careful collectors know that excitement comes after evidence, not before it. And that is the skill I want you to take away from this video. Not blind optimism, not random guessing, observation, patience, evidence. You have now looked at 3 different Washington quarters from 3 different years, and each one teaches you the same powerful lesson in a different way. A coin can look ordinary. Your first impression can be wrong, and the smallest details can make you stop and look twice. Some collectors spend decades learning those details. You can start with one coin tonight. Go through your quarter jar. Check the dates. Check the mint marks. Look at the surfaces. Compare examples. Use your magnifier. And if something genuinely unusual catches your eye, do not ignore it. You might not have a $35 million coin. You might have an ordinary quarter. But you will never know which one deserves a second look unless you actually look. The final moment of a great coin discovery is rarely dramatic at first. It can be quiet. Someone opens an old box. Someone turns over a coin. Someone notices a tiny detail. Their breathing changes. Their hands stop moving. They look again. And suddenly, something that seemed ordinary becomes unforgettable. That is a feeling collectors chase. So go check your coins. Right now, tonight, because someone watching this video is sitting on a coin they do not fully understand. That someone could be you. If today gave you something real, something most people will never know, then subscribe. Hit the bell, because what is coming to this channel is going to be worth every notification.